Today, we are going to cover off on the top e-bike questions that we get about our rad power bikes.
And we'd like to thank Rad Power Bikes for sponsoring our adventures for the past 2 years. I can definitely say it's been one rad ride. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
All right, let's get right into these questions because we have a ton of them and we're gonna cover a lot of stuff. Let's go. Okay, the very first series of questions we get about our bikes is what kind of cover do we use? What kind of rack do we use? Do we use it during transport? How do we lock it? And those series of questions. We've had a couple different styles of covers. This one's called Team Obsidian. The other one is Pro Bike Tool. Those are basically the top two on Amazon, and they make a couple different styles, a stationary and a transport. The transport's designed to be on your bikes while you're transporting them, and they usually come with some extra straps or loops, things like that. They come in a 1 bike, usually called a large, a 2 bike, usually called an XL, and a 3 bike or a XXL. We found that the 2 bike cover fits 2 e-bikes. It's a little tighter than probably normal bikes, but it seems to work for us. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip this cover off, and then we'll take a look at the bikes and the rack.
Rip it off, baby.
You can see that these bikes do get a little bit of dirt and road wear from traveling, so the bottom of the covers are not covered. They're exposed to the elements, so you do get some dust and dirt depending on what you're driving on, and some kind of road debris up in there. So before we talk about the bike rack, I'll talk about the locks and how we do that quick. So we use a kryptonite chain lock as well as our folding ABUS bike locks to kind of help secure these. These are locked up multiple ways, and we're not worried if we're stopping overnight at Walmart or a Cracker Barrel or a rest stop or something like that. Somebody's gonna have to do some serious work to get these bikes off here with power tools. So you do not want to just use cable locks that somebody can easily clip in the middle of the night and get away with your bikes. You really want to use some type of heavy duty chain or folding metal lock so that they are secure. One other thing we've had for about 2 years now is something called a cinch chain that we used in the van quite a bit. We still have it attached to our bumper just as another piece of chain that's helping secure our bikes. And then lastly, we'll talk about our hitch, which is by Hollywood Racks. It's called the Sport Rider for e-bikes, I believe. And the reason we chose this one was because years ago, there really wasn't that many e-bike style bike racks out there. This one's rated to carry 80 pounds per bike, where a lot of racks are at 60, 65, 70. I'm sure there's more and more coming out to the market. Now, the downside of this one is that it is not rated for travel trailers. So we're on the lookout to get something that is specifically designed for travel trailers. This is fine to use like on our van. They also have an RV model that works for motorhomes and fifth wheels, but not for travel trailers. If you do know about a travel trailer approved e-bike rack, would love to hear about it. Somebody actually commented a couple months ago, and I couldn't find what they said, but they did say they found a particular brand. So if you're watching this, reach out again in the comments. Otherwise, if you do have a favorite e-bike rack that you use, let us know down below. It's super hot and humid out here, so I'm gonna take these things down and we're gonna cover the next set of questions.
Thanks for taking these down. You wanna go for a spin?
Yes, we should.
Another common question that we get is how effective are the e-bikes for fitness purposes? And as fitness junkies, why do we even use e-bikes in the first place? Because a lot of people still coin these as cheating. And the bottom line is they are as effective as the user makes them. Meaning if you throttle down and turn that assistance down to 0, 1, or even 2, you can get a really good workout. You can burn a lot of calories, you can get a lot of movement, and it can be highly effective. And the category of people that I think really benefit from this, in addition to regular everyday fit people, are the people that might be at a lower fitness level, or maybe they can't ride a regular bicycle, or they don't have the confidence to ride a regular bicycle. This can get you up, and it can get you in areas that you wouldn't normally go into, such as hilly areas. It can get you a little bit further, and it gets you moving rather than doing nothing at all.
We have to talk about locking these bikes up. That's the next biggest question we get, is how do you lock these things up? Now, we're not always at a campsite that has a picnic table or pole or anything like that. So we like to utilize our RV because we do a lot of boondocking, and sometimes this is the most secure thing to lock your bike up to once they're off the rack. Now, I mentioned those cable locks before. This is what a cable lock looks like. We do not use these at all unless the bike is still like within our vision. So if we're at a restaurant and we're eating on the patio and the bikes are locked up outside on the fence, or you could use this as a day lock to your picnic table if it's right in front of your RV. But that just gets you into the option of like choosing which lock do I use, should I use that one? And then you're gonna forget about it. This is gonna be locked up on your bikes overnight, and somebody can easily and silently clip this and get away with your expensive bikes. So what do? Get something heavier duty, like a chain lock, like this guy I talked about earlier from Kryptonite. And also you could use what we've been using for the whole 2 years here, is these folding locks. This is what we had first. And the folding locks are great because they're always on your bike with this nice little holder down here, and they're made out of metal. They're very hard to bust into. Now, the biggest downfall of the folding lock is that they're not as flexible. You only have this little bit of space to lock your bike up, and they don't quite twist and move as much. So that's why we also picked up this style lock, because this is just much easier to use. And we're always locking up 2 bikes too, so each one of us would use one of these folding locks, but now we can usually lock both bikes up with something like this. Couple other quick side notes on bike security. There is also motion alarms you can get. They're very inexpensive on Amazon. We picked up a set of those as well. You can put them on your bike, and then you can arm it with just this button, just like locking your car, and they basically go off motion, and if somebody's trying to rattle your bike, the alarm will go off. Something else we've recently gotten is Apple AirTags, and those are very inexpensive as well, and you can hide those Apple AirTags somewhere on your bike, and that way you have a GPS locator on your bike that you don't have to pay a monthly subscription for. And if you don't have Apple, Android also makes tags as well, and they're usually around 30 bucks a piece. Something else you can do for free is register your bike's serial numbers on the bike index. That's something we did right away. That will help aid if your bikes do get stolen. Sometimes they can help identify those bikes if they're recovered and hopefully get them back to the right owner. One day, built-in locks, built-in GPS, that would be cool. But for now, lock your bikes up with good solid locks and deal with the key ring.
I just want to cover off on sizing while we have the bike here in front of us for reference points. So this is the Step-Thru version, and this bike is appropriate for people who are 5'2" up to 6'2". And so it can get some of the shorter people in there. The high step, that's gonna be more for the 5'4" to 6'2". So if you are in that 5'2" to 5'4", you definitely want to opt for the Step-Thru, just because the frame is going to be a lot more comfortable. I'm personally 5'7", and I fit on both, and I actually really enjoy riding both. So when I do hop on his feels a little bit more athletic. If you're going for more of that athletic feel, you might want to get the high step. For those of you that are under 5'2", Rad offers the Rad Expand 5, which is an even smaller frame, and that's designed for people that are in the 4'10" to 5'10" range. So that's another option to look at.
All right, since there are so many questions to cover and we can't cover them all in one video, we're gonna try to do a little rapid fire section and just rifle off these questions and answers.
Bam, 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 bam.
First one, what was the deciding factor in brand and style that you chose? I'd say first off, We reached out to Rad Power Bikes because we heard that they were one of the best e-bike companies out there. We did have some friends that had some Rad Power Bikes that had a good word of mouth review. And also they are, I believe, the largest e-bike seller in North America. You don't get to be the largest if you're not pretty good at what you're doing. So that had some factor into it. And customer service is always a big deal to us. We hear they have great customer service. We really haven't had any warranty issues with ours, but that's because they build a good bike.
Yeah, and it was really easy for us to choose our specific style. We straight away just knew that we did not want the foldable. And once you eliminate things that you know you don't want, it really helps narrow in on what would you like.
And we knew we wanted the fat tires. So non-foldable fat tires kind of led us right to the RadRover.
Yeah, and I knew that I wanted a step-through because it just seemed like a more comfortable, like, I'm not a hardcore cyclist going into this. I wasn't before either. So I just knew, yeah, the step-through looks really just like fun to get on, easy to hop around and maneuver. So that was an easy decision for me.
Okay, next question. Do you use them enough to justify the cost of e-bikes? E-bikes are kind of expensive, and that's obviously a very personal question. Everybody's gonna use them a little bit differently. I can say we used them a ton when we were in the van because we had no other means of transportation, and so these bikes were like a second vehicle to us.
It definitely was our alternate transportation. We used them hard. Instead of taking a vehicle to go explore, we would take the bikes everywhere we went. So we would explore on them. I would use them to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I used it to go to the chiropractor, like anything within that 10 to 15 mile radius, we were hopping on our bikes.
It was awesome. Now, when we got the travel trailer, I'd say it slowed down a little bit. And when we got Louie, it slowed down even more.
Kind of went to a halt there.
It's very, very challenging with a small puppy, obviously, doing anything, let alone getting out and going on these long e-bike rides, battling with the heat and all that.
He's getting to that age now where we can leave him alone more. So I think that would go back up. But given this situation with him being so little, it just changed a little bit.
Every single campground we go to now, we see dozens of e-bikes. Lots of people, you know, in the past couple of years have bought these things and they love them. I mean, we see people take their e-bikes to the pool, to the laundromat, to like everywhere all around the campground.
E-bikes are like the new golf cart.
Yeah.
For RV parks.
How much does your e-bike weigh? This is a pretty common question, and some people might not realize that e-bikes are pretty heavy. Our RadRover 6s are around 73 pounds, I think, but a good reference is e-bikes are around 70 pounds. Some are a little less, some are a little more, but right around that 70 pounds.
Two things with the weight. One is obviously riding it. You know, you want to be able to handle it. You want to be able to like hold it, move it, mount it. Secondly, though, I think more importantly is the ability to lift it up and hitch it. And if you are a solo traveler and if you're not able to do that on your own, you're going to be in a little bit of a pickle. You might even find yourself avoiding riding it because you don't want to unhitch it or take it up or put it down and things like that.
You might need a rack with like a ramp.
Yeah.
To kind of walk it up there. We're going to have a couple questions about charging because charging is always just
hot topic.
One of those hot topics. How many miles can you go on a charge? Every e-bike manufacturer has different size batteries. Our Rad Power bikes have a 14 amp hour battery, which they say is rated for about 45 plus miles per charge. We got up to, I think, almost 50 miles on one charge one time when we were in San Francisco. So it really does matter how much juice you give it.
Yeah, how much throttle are you throttling? And in that specific trip, we were doing level 0 quite a lot. Now we were also doing quite a bit of throttling with the hills. It kind of levels out, but if you're finding that you're throttling nonstop, that distance is gonna go significantly down.
If you're throttling on 5, top speed, or holding down the throttle, you're only gonna get about 20 miles per charge. So if you're just going full speed, you know, to a location and then back, you better only go about 10 miles out and back. Otherwise, if you use pedal assist 1, 2, 3, that really saves the battery. And even on 3, it's a very good speed. You're probably doing, I don't know, 15 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, that's a fairly good assist level.
Speaking of the distance that you can ride on these bikes, a lot of people ask about buying a second battery. And yes, you can get a second battery through Rad Power bikes. And it's a good thing to have if you are going to be riding more than that 30 to 50 miles in one day. That extra battery is a good peace of mind.
Talk about an all-day adventure.
So how long does it take to charge these batteries back up? Well, as I said, it's a 14 amp hour battery. The charger is a 2 amp hour battery. So it can take up to 7 hours to completely charge up a dead battery. That's a long time.
That's surprisingly a really long time. I think when we first got the bikes, that was the biggest learning curve for me. I just thought you'd plug it in and it'd be like an hour, like a cell phone or something.
But most of the time you're not charging a completely dead battery, so you got to think about that too. So, but do plan for a few hours. I mean, you want to try to charge it after every use. Otherwise you're going to get into that situation where you got to watch out for the battery. So can you charge your battery on solar power, or more importantly through your own battery on your RV while boondocking? The short answer is yes, you can, but it does take up more power than you might think. So it's a 120 watt charger roughly. And so, like I said, 7 hours to charge a completely dead battery. So if you're in the middle of the day and you're getting a couple 100 watts of solar in, you're going to be fine charging your battery up, but you got to keep in mind what you're using the rest of your RV system for. Now, so it's a 14 amp hour battery on the bike. This gets kind of weird.
This is where you're losing me.
But it's not a 12 volt battery, it's a 48 volt battery. So it's 4 times the voltage of a standard battery. So when you're talking about your RV system, which is 12 volt, and your e-bike system, which is 48 volt, it's not 14 amp hours to 14 amp hours. So if you had a 100 amp hour lithium battery, it would roughly take half of your 100 amp hour lithium battery to charge up your e-bike. So it does take a lot.
I think Aaron covered that perfectly. I have nothing to contribute in addition to that.
I think I confused myself, you, and everybody with that one. We've had a few people ask about maintenance on an e-bike. And I would say years ago, most shops maybe shied away from working on e-bikes because they're just not that familiar with it. I think now it's a lot more common. They're all over the place. And there's a lot of components that are the same on a bike as an e-bike. They just have a few extra bikes with the motor and battery and electrical system. We've done all of the maintenance ourselves. Definitely ran into a stint where we would get some flat tires. We ended up putting in the green slime into the tires. As soon as we did that, we had 0 flats.
Yeah.
Since hundreds of miles of driving on
So that really falls into the preventative, to like prevent it from happening in the first place. Another thing that you're really good at is like rinsing them and washing them, especially in salty areas. If you're riding them on the ocean, definitely just give them a good rinse down so that they don't get rusty where the metal is exposed.
Somebody just recently asked me about rust, and it's only on bare metal. So there's like one spot on the pedal where it's like the screw that holds the pedal in, that shows a little bit of rust. The brake rotor around it is exposed metal, so that rusts up a little bit. We get asked a lot about our top accessories as well, so we'll just kind of go through those quick and put links down below to the ones that we really like.
Number 1. Helmet.
Our helmets.
You gotta ride safe out there, and it's not about you as a driver of the bike. You have to be defensive because there's a lot of vehicles on the road that still aren't used to people riding bikes on the road, especially in America. Like, people don't commute bikes like they do in other countries. Like, there's just less bike riding here.
Yeah.
And so you really have to be preventative for other people that are just straight up bad drivers.
We really like the Burn Alistine helmets, I think they're called. They look nice. They have a lot of ventilation. We're always in hot weather, so ventilation was a big deal to us.
They're easy to clean.
The only thing missing is a Bluetooth capability to talk to each other. I know there's some Bluetooth helmets out there.
Okay, item number 2. For me, it has to be the pannier bag, which goes on the back. You actually have to mount it to a rack, which technically that would count as 2 accessories, your rear rack and then the pannier bag itself. But that pannier bag is awesome, especially if you are going to be using it for groceries and carrying things, even just throwing in like a hoodie sweatshirt and some sunglasses and your purse, things like that, water bottles, like it's awesome.
Yeah, the style we got was called a toe peak. Collapsible pannier bag. So some panniers just sit on the side of your bike and are there the whole time. We wanted something that was only there when we needed it. So our panniers are a bag that has a nice big compartment, and then it has panniers that flip down for even more storage when you're at the store. Just a great accessory because, like we said, we use these e-bikes for much more than just riding around. We use them for grocery shopping and hauling stuff like that.
I always bring stuff with me. Like,
yeah,
I'm the type of person, I go into air-conditioned building and I'm freezing. So I always have a hoodie with me, even if it's 90 degrees, like I'm bringing stuff with.
Thanks again to Rad Power Bikes for sponsoring this video. Check out the links below for big sales like the one they have right now for up to $400 off select models. Affiliate links will be down below to everything we talked about, and go ahead and feel free to ask any questions you might have. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.